Thanks, guys. That's right. Before we get to that story, I want to let you, the viewers, know that Fox Corp has been muzzling me to keep certain information from you, the viewers. And from what I'm gathering, I am not the only reporter being subjected to this.
We want every legal vote to be counted, and we want every illegal vote to be...
I just think we have to be very clear. She's charging, the other side is welcoming fraud and welcoming illegal voting. Unless she has more details to back that up, I can't in good countenance continue showing you this.
Yeah, look, the number one problem in almost all these cities is George Soros elected left-wing, anti-police, pro-criminal district attorneys.
I'm not sure we need to bring George Soros into this. I was going to say you get the last word, Speaker.
He paid for it. I mean, why can't we discuss the fact that millions of dollars he spent?
I agree with Melissa. George Soros doesn't need to be a part of this conversation.
Okay. So it's verboten.
All right, we're gonna.
So if anybody should lose a job, it should be him and his cronies and Biden.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, Biden's such a dumb bastard. He just doesn't get anything.
Yeah, can't talk about the president like that.
I am going to be releasing some recordings about what goes on behind the scenes at Fox because it applies to you, the viewers. I found a nonprofit journalism group called Project Veritas. It's going to help put that out tomorrow, so tune into them. But as for this heat wave across Texas, you can see what it's doing to AC units. This one broken down as we speak.
Why he lied and said the lockdown's illegal? How can it be legal?
You have seen it, and then there's no way back. It's not very healthy, you know, to lie to yourself and say, no, I didn't see that. Yeah. But many people do because it's simply too painful.
Now, more on the latest building collapse in New York. You might have heard a few moments ago, I was talking about the Salomon Brothers building collapsing. And indeed it has. It seems that this was not a result of a new attack. It was because the building had been weakened during this morning's attacks. We'll probably find out more now about that from our correspondent, Jane Stanley. Jane, what more can you tell us about the Salomon Brothers building and its collapse?
Well, only really what you already know. Details are very, very sketchy. As you can see behind me, the...
To lock people in their houses without judge, jury, and
And Dr. Fauci, too. Of course, you can take that any way that you want to. This is still the United States of America, after all. And as much as these bad actors hate to admit to it, we do still have the freedom of speech. But since our freedom of speech seems more and more like a limited time offer, maybe it would be safer for me if you didn't twist my words around. I never said that we should all get together and hang the rat bastard in order to set some sort of example out of him. But if that ultimately becomes Dr. Fauci's fate, then so be it. And I'm sure that if an unruly crowd does go after the good doctor, then this video, which will more than likely top out somewhere around 300 views, will probably land me in a prison cell. The fact that Anthony Fauci has not been fired yet is baffling. The fact that Anthony Fauci has not been arrested yet and charged for his crimes against humanity speaks volumes for how corrupt our justice system truly is. Let's look at one example of how our corrupt justice system operates. On July 27, 1996, during the Summer Games in Atlanta, a pipe bomb with nails went off in a crowded Centennial Olympic Park, killing one woman and injuring 111 other people. Shortly before the explosion, Richard Jewell, who was working as a temporary security guard in the area, discovered a suspicious-looking backpack abandoned beneath a park bench. Jewell alerted police to the backpack, which held a bomb, and moved people out of harm's way before it exploded. In the aftermath of the bombing, Jewell was praised as a hero for his actions. However, 3 days later, the media reported that Jewell was being investigated as a suspect in the case, although he was never arrested or charged with any crime. For the next 3 months, Jewell faced intense scrutiny from both law enforcement officials and the media, who combed through his background and tracked his movements. Even after the Justice Department officially cleared Jewell of any involvement in the bombing in late October 1996, some people still viewed him with suspicion. If you didn't know, Richard Jewell hired an attorney by the name of Lynn Wood, who later had this to say about the incident. The FBI knew within 1 hour of the 1996 Centennial Olympic Park bombing that Richard Jewell was innocent, but his reputation of "we got our man" and the big Olympic money were at risk. So Richard was the scapegoat of the day. The FBI was corrupt before 1996, it was corrupt in 1996, and it has been corrupt every day since 1996. Our country does not need a Federal Bureau of Investigation. P.S. We don't need the CIA either. Which of course is interesting, because John F. Kennedy was once quoted saying, "I will splinter the CIA into 1,000 pieces and scatter it into the wind." Perhaps he was onto something. Lee Harvey Oswald, the man they held responsible for killing JFK, infamously claimed that he was nothing more than a patsy.
I'd like some legal representation. These police officers have not allowed me to have any. I don't know what this is all about.
Kill the president?
No, sir, I didn't. People keep asking me that. Sir?
You shoot the president?
I work in that building.
Were you in the building at the time?
Naturally, if I work in that building, yes, sir.
Back up, man. Did you shoot the president?
No, they're taking me in because of the fact that I lived in the Soviet Union. I'm just a patsy. I'm just a patsy. Patsy.
Of course, anyone with half a brain realizes by now that George H.W. Bush was John F. Kennedy's true killer. Anyway, speaking of unruly crowds and corrupt justice systems.
Remember that plot to kidnap Governor Gretchen Whitmer? We heard a lot about that, and Whitmer was able to cover some of her own incompetence, though not pointing to the fact that she's now a victim. Now, in the FBI's telling of that plot, a whole team of insurrectionists was going to drive a van up to Gretchen Whitmer's vacation house and throw her in the back and drive away. The whole story was a farce. It was insulting, really, once you got to the details, which outlets like the AP didn't bother with in the first read. But if you read the government's charging documents carefully, and you should, you will see that it gets even more ridiculous. It turns out that one of the 5 people in the planned Gretchen Whitmer kidnap van was an FBI agent in the van. Another was an FBI informant. And the feds admitted in these documents that an informant or undercover agent was, quote, usually present in the group's meetings. In other words, using simple math, which we can do even on cable news, nearly half the gang of kidnappers were working for the FBI.
I live in Michigan, so I knew right from the beginning of this that there was no plot to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer. If the plot had been to hang her, I probably would have fallen for it. However, in my opinion, the alleged plot to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer only surfaced as an attempt to cover up her own corruption. Of course, thanks to individuals like Tucker Carlson, we now know that the FBI lent Whitmer a helping hand. Let's take a closer look at this. United States Attorney Andrew Burge announced today that 6 men have been arrested and charged federally with conspiring to kidnap the governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer. According to a complaint filed Tuesday, October 6, 2020, Adam Fox, Barry Croft, Ty Garvin, Caleb Franks, Daniel Harris, and Brandon Caserta conspired to kidnap the governor from her vacation home in the Western District of Michigan. So these 6 men were arrested on October 6, 2020. 6 men on October 6. Kind of makes you wonder where the other 6 is, doesn't it? Anyway, October 6 just so happened to be about a month after Gretchen Whitmer decided that she needed to build an 8-foot electric fence around her house, which according to this article didn't cost her any money, but it did cost the taxpayers roughly $1.1 million. To me, this statement alone is ridiculous. I mean, why would I feel like helping Whitmer build a fence around her house when for over a year she didn't let me leave mine? In my opinion, Gretchen Whitmer clearly just used the $115 million that she hoped everyone had forgotten about after cutting funds to the police, and she simply used that money to build the 8-foot fence around her house. At the time, there was a growing number of people who felt like the executive orders Whitmer put into place not only caused more deaths, but also resulted in many of her grandparents dying in a very inhumane sort of way. Confused, scared, and all alone. Of course, Gretchen Whitmer is not the only governor who has been accused of such crimes against humanity. According to this article here, by the New York Post, Governor Andrew Cuomo's nursing home order did in fact cause more deaths. And if you can remember it right, during the early stages of the pandemic, New York was a horror show.
I just wanted to say one thing also about what Tony had mentioned. So I grew up in Queens, New York, and right next to a place called Elmhurst, Queens. And they have a hospital that's a very good hospital, Elmhurst Hospital, right? I've known it. I've known where it is. I can tell you the color on the outside, the size of the windows. I mean, I know it very well, right? I was near my community where I lived. And I've been watching that for the last week on television. Body bags all over in hallways. I've been watching them bring in trailer trucks, freezer trucks. They're freezer trucks because they can't handle the bodies. There's so many of them. This is essentially in my community, in Queens, New York. I've seen things that I've never seen before. I mean, I've seen them, but I've seen them on television in faraway lands. I've never seen them in our country.
After seeing how bad it was in New York, Donald Trump decided to send the USS Comfort.
I'm Trinity Chavez reporting in New York, where the Navy hospital ship Comfort is expected to arrive on Monday.
When it pulled into Pier 90 Manhattan, a crowd of people gathered and cheered. It was a feat to celebrate. In less than 15 days, the Navy got 2 hospital ships up and running to help with the hospital bed shortage. However, the ship, even after it began taking COVID-19 patients in early April, remained largely unused while nursing homes accepted COVID-19 positive residents. Under New York Governor Andrew Cuomo's order, now Cuomo is facing questions into his coronavirus response, including why the ship remained empty, as his nursing home order remained in effect, which of course is a fair question to ask. But if you remember, Governor Cuomo didn't seem to care at all that people in his state were dying.
A third of all deaths in this nation are from nursing homes. New York State, we're only about 28% only. But we're below the national average in number of deaths in nursing homes. But who cares? 33, 28, died in a hospital, died in a nursing home. They died. Who cares?
In my opinion, Governor Cuomo, Gretchen Whitmer, and Anthony Fauci should all be charged with crimes against humanity. But unfortunately, they are not the only ones. I mean, I haven't even mentioned John Podesta, or Hillary Clinton, or how about Bill Gates? The honesty of it is, the list of characters who make up the swamp that Donald Trump is always referencing goes on and on and on.